Hello, this is Kamal Dance. This is the Peng Sports Podcast, episode 13. Unlucky number 13, I think it is, or lucky number 13, one of the two. But I was of always the idea or always the faith that if you're going to put a twist on something, why not make it positive? With zodiac signs or numbers, why do they always have to have a negative twist on things, like a Pisces? Why do Pisces have to be whatever Pisces? I don't know what characteristics they're supposed to have. But why can't all Pisces be charming and charismatic? Why do they have to be negative? You know? Now, today I want to touch on Kwame Brown. No, I don't. I don't want to touch that. But with Kwame Brown, I will say this. You can only poke a bear for so long or mess with a person for so long before you expect them to defend themselves or whatever's been going on with the Kwame Brown situation. And I just believe there's plenty of other bad things going on in the world that we can analyze and critique. So when a man's not doing anything and had a decent career, we don't need to critique this man. Maybe as a joke once. I'm pretty sure everyone's cool with the joke once or twice, but it sort of became a thing in the media or in the community to sort of rip on Kwame Brown. But it's whatever. It's neither here nor there, I think. Now, before you listen to this podcast, you need to know that it will be very, very heavy NBA playoff analysis. It's going to be heavy NBA player by an expert analysis. And don't question what's going on, but a lot of playoff stuff going on this podcast episode 13. And it is 7:11 a.m. and it is May 26th. So, talking about the playoffs, let's get into the playoffs. I like the playoffs. I really, truly do. But can we chill on the amount of games we're playing? If that makes sense. Why do we have 3 games? We had 3 games last night. We had 2 games on Monday night, which was fine. But then we had 3 games tonight. We do have 3 games tonight. Then we had 3 games on Tuesday night. And we have 50 games on the weekend. Why? Because flipping back and forth, even though I was able to somewhat catch the end of the Clippers game, flipping back and forth from the Clippers and Lakers game is just a huge task. Well, not that big of a task. I'm flipping from game to game. But I would prefer to just watch the Lakers game and not even worry about the Clippers game. Or watch, I don't remember who's playing tonight, but I believe the Memphis, I know the Wizards and 76ers play tonight. Memphis and the Jazz play tonight. And there's another team in the Western Conference that plays tonight. But game after game after game, I think it's just you get somewhat oversaturated in the amount of games, you know? And the product, I won't say isn't as great, but just can't love the playoffs or love basketball how you can when you're not focused on the premier games, when they're all over the place and they're all scattered, not knowing when to watch the Hawks-Knicks games or whatever like that, you know? But I want to start out with the play-in game, something that hasn't gotten really a lot of coverage or as much coverage as I would think. The Warriors versus the Grizzlies. It was sort of scraped by because I think it was a Friday game. And I get a lot of people chose the Warriors, so no one's going to talk about the wrong predictions, like that. But I will. I don't really mind it, and I don't think people really mind it either. Just, it was a whole weekend went by, other things happened. It's neither here nor there. I would also be remiss not to mention the Golden State Lakers game. I may be being lost in the sauce or caught in the hype right now, but those were one of the 2 best games I had ever seen in my life. If it's not in the top 10, it's in at least the top 15 in my life. Basketball games, straight up. Grayson Allen was making plays. Steph Curry was making plays. LeBron was making plays. Jordan Poole had one of the dirtiest crossovers I've ever seen. Almost dunked on LeBron. It was just phenomenal, high-level, high-stake basketball. Of course, on the Eastern Conference, it was a little bit different with the Wizards and the Celtics and the Pacers and the Hornets and the Celtics and the Wizards. All those games were basically blowouts. But all in all, at least in the Western Conference, the Lakers Golden State game was phenomenal. LeBron apparently seeing 3 rims and he shot for the middle one. Ja Morant showing up, proving that he's here, he's ready. You know, I deserve Rookie of the Year. I don't care. Zion could have played last year, the full season. I deserve Rookie of the Year. And I didn't grow up in the 90s or 80s. I did not see Bill Russell, the GOAT, play. But I'll tell you this. Basketball may not be as good as it was back then as it is today. But basketball, we got some ballers in today's NBA. I won't say better ballers because, again, I wasn't around. But we got some ballers in today's NBA. And I think you got to appreciate it. I think it's a waste of time to critique and compare it to other generations. Appreciate it because we got great games, great teams, and just appreciate this NBA basketball because you don't know. We could be back in the early 2000s era where everyone criticizes when J. Kidd was killing it, even though that probably wasn't even that bad. But appreciate this basketball right now. But from the playing games to the regular playoff games, Bucks versus Heat, first series on the list. Again, another heavy podcast of playoff basketball. Bucks versus Heat. The key words to the series is Drew Holiday and home court. Last year in the bubble, did the Bucks close out the Heat? In a neutral setting, do the Bucks close out the Heat like they did last year? Does Chris Middleton hit that shot in overtime? Do the Bucks come out guns blazing, or do they take their foot off the gas pedal in a neutral setting? I don't want to discredit what Miami did last year, but home court is a huge advantage. I still think the Heat have a chance with their culture, with their coaching. Jimmy Butler, I don't believe they're going to get swept at home. If anything, they could tie the series up 2-2. And we're looking at a totally different series. Home court plays a factor. How big of a factor is up for you to determine? But home court plays a factor in the playoffs. And again, nothing to take away from the Heat last year. And I believe the Bucks deserve the critique that they got last year. But this is a better analysis of how good the Bucks really are. And it shows how good Drew Holiday is. How important Drew Holiday is. Just a consistent scorer in the Bucks, for the Bucks. A consistent defender. You know what you're going to get every night from Drew Holiday. Now, from a team that seems consistent, you have to be at your best to beat them, or at least better than them to beat them. They're not going to dip. You can't expect them to drop the ball. To the team that today, in probably today's media, or just in today, literally today, Wednesday, is probably going to get crucified, lack for a better word, crucified, and that's the Clippers. Clippers versus Mavs. And a common belief in basketball is you can't stop great. And Luka Doncic for the Dallas Mavericks, if you're confused what team he plays for, is playing great, playing lights out. I don't love the the two fourth quarters he's had. He sort of disappeared. I think that's a fitness issue. But Tim Hardaway Jr. has been playing lights out. First game, they hit 17 threes. Game 2, which was yesterday, they had 18 threes. And like the Lakers, the Clippers, I believe, are still trying to figure it out. And you clearly see this on the defensive end. Because the thing is, when you would say, are the Clippers really trying to figure it out, or are they just not that good? And that's a fair point. Are they just not that good? I think they are that good. Because it's not Paul George who's not playing well. It's not Kawhi Leonard who's not playing well. It's the role players who aren't playing well. Now, and I won't say not playing well. They dropped 121 points, I believe, last game. And then they only had 103 points game 1. So it's not necessarily we need to rebuild or revamp. They don't know their team. Allowing the Dallas Mavericks to score 113 points isn't bad. But then you scoring 121 points isn't bad either. You just let the Dallas Mavericks score high 120s, I think 128 if I'm not mistaken, 127, something around those lines. And then you only score 103 points a game in game 1. So figuring out that balance, that perfect balance of, okay, this is what we need to do on offense. We figured out offense. So this is what we need to do on defense. Do the Mavericks hit 17 shots from 3 and 18 shots from 3? Are they just going to let the Clippers do that? The Mavericks do that? Or do you figure out a way to run them off the 3-point line? Because in the games, Tim Hardaway is getting open shots. These shots aren't. Some of them are contested shots. But open threes. I live with Luka taking deep 3. I even live with Damian Lillard taking a deep 3. But some of these, we need to run them off 3-point line. The Clippers have also been the number 1 3-point shooting team in the league. And the Mavericks have outshot them. And you're going to hear a lot of hoopla and all this, oh, the Clippers aren't who we thought they were. Well, no. The Clippers, I won't be surprised if they win 4 straight. The Clippers are going to win this series. I still have faith. Maybe it's blind faith. Maybe it's me being a Paul George fan. I'm a fan of Paul George. I'm a fan of Paul George because so many people aren't fan of Paul George's game. However you say it. But the disrespect that he gets, I just think is totally overblown. You can't say he didn't show up this series. And if you use back second year OKC, you can't say he didn't show up that series either against Portland. Yeah, they lost. But chill with the Paul George critique. It's a role player thing. It's clear they don't know their best team because the best team hasn't been playing the whole season. Luke Kennard isn't playing. Luke Kennard was a common rotation guy. Patrick Beverley wasn't playing. He was injured most of the season. They're figuring it out. Do we play Patrick Beverley? Do we play Mann? Do we play Rondo? Who do we close out with? Who or how do we play defense is another question they should be asking. All questions they're trying to figure out. Once they figure out those answers, I think it's Western Conference Finals, easy. Tanking, maybe this is exactly why they didn't want to play the Lakers. It makes sense. They know they're just getting all their players back. Lakers, same way. Speaking of the Lakers. But anyways, Clippers. Clippers in 6. I'm going to say that. Clippers in 6. Right? Still got the Clippers. And I think they figured out Luka Doncic a little bit. I think they figured him out. I really truly think the Clippers have figured it out. 4 straight, 6, Clippers in 6. Now, like the Clippers, with their chemistry issues, as I said a little earlier, the Lakers have their chemistry issues. And the question I've always had with the Lakers is, will their game translate to the playoffs? And that's a weird question to ask, right? Will the Lakers translate? Will they get better? Will their defense translate? You have LeBron. What do you mean? Of course it's going to translate. You have AD. Yeah, AD has his up and down games, but he'll translate. Will their defense translate? And that was the question I always had. What's their rotation? And we saw yesterday. Who played yesterday? I didn't see too much of Kansas Macklemore. I didn't see too much Harrell, Louisville product. I saw a lot of Caruso. I saw a lot of Andre Drummond. I saw a little bit of Horton Tucker. Looked like an 8-man rotation. Wesley Matthews was in there a little bit. A 9-man rotation, now that I say it. Well, Andre Drummond started. So still an 8-man rotation. I think that's the Lakers are saying, hey, this is the best we got. Caldwell Pope not playing well, still able to pull it out. On Sunday, their defense wasn't there. They're trying to figure things out. And remember last year, guys, they lost game 1 of the bubble. Two straight rounds, game 1 losses. I just think the Suns are just young, and the Lakers came out and punched them in the face. And they came out with energy, and the Suns weren't expecting that. Because Aiden still had a great game. Devin Booker. You look at Devin Booker's stats, you say, dang, Devin Booker still torched him. No. Devin Booker's shots were just way more difficult. The Lakers can translate. And they answer my question. Can their defense translate? Yes. Playing great. Not great, but effort. They just gave more effort. That's the only thing. You can't go into the X and O's. They gave more effort yesterday. And that's it. Now, CP3. If you remember a few weeks back, I apologized to CP3 for his playoff exploits, and he's going to have to prove to me something. Now, do I come back and say, that's the word of the day, I guess, now. Do I come back and say, CP3 once again? And in some ways, you can't have to say CP3 once again. But I'm not going to hold CP3, Chris Paul, Wake Forest product getting injured again. I'm not going to hold that against him. But I will say this. I believe he signed a 1-year contract with the Phoenix Suns. Not totally confident in that. Let me check right now. So yeah, he's still on that 4-year contract that I believe the Rockets signed him to, but they decided to trade him around. So he'll be back for the Suns. And what Chris Paul does isn't anything extraordinary. And what I mean by that is his game, he's not dunking or he's not he's not using athleticism. He's a game manager. So he'll be back better than ever, or just the same as he was this year. Are the Suns done? Well, I predicted the Suns in 4 or 5, and on Sunday, when they played first, I said maybe this can go 6. I had in my script and everything. Maybe this game is 6. Maybe I overestimated the Lakers, how well they do. Well, with that injury, I got the Clippers in 6. Remember that, Clippers in 6. I still got the Lakers in 5. I still have the Lakers in 5. I think this series is over. I really do. And it's not because of the Suns being crappy or them being outmatched or them this being too big of a stage for them. It's because their best player, Chris Paul, is injured. But they still have Devin Booker. They still have Ayton. To me, the book's not totally out on Miles Bridges. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to have to see a little bit more of Miles Bridges. Apparently he locked LeBron up on Sunday. Didn't look like he locked him up too much yesterday. But here's a chance for D-Book, Miles Bridges, and DeAndre Ayton to show me why are you legit if when Chris Paul leaves? When Chris Paul contract expires in 2021-22, or when Chris Paul gets injured, why this team is still your team, Devin Booker? Why this team is still your team? Why this team is still your team, DeAndre Ayton? Tell me, show me that I'm wrong. Show me that you can put this game to 6. And it's not Lakers in 6, it's Suns in 6. Show me. But a series that I know is probably going to go 4 to 5 games is the Celtics-Nets series. Now, again with the now. If it was the Heat in the series, the same thing would happen. The same thing would go down. If the Wizards win the series, the same thing would happen. Pacers, same thing. It's just the Nets, man. If the Suns were in this series, if the Jazz were in this series, if the Mavericks were in this series, if the Grizzlies were in this series, if the Trailblazers were in this series, if the Nuggets were in this series, the same thing would happen. So I don't think the Celtics are out of their total rebuild. No, you're playing the Nets. If you were playing the Heat, okay, maybe hit the panic button. But there's no way to prove that. To prove that you need a rebuild right now. Your second best player is injured. You have no center. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. They got the short end of the stick. I don't know Zach Collins' contract for the Portland Trailblazers, but I'm looking at Zach Collins if I'm the Celtics. I'm looking at a center this offseason if I'm the Celtics. Williams, I believe his name is. Not totally convinced. If he's a center, really good player, I said Tristan Thompson in some of my notes. Tristan Thompson needs to start for them. But I think you put Williams at the 4. If you can get Zach Collins from Portland Trailblazers, or get a center, this Celtics team is a contender. Easily. Get a center. I don't know the center prospects this season, but I know that there's some solid, good centers always. In a weak center league, there's always solid centers. No superstars, really. I saw the Jokic and Embiid. But once they get them a center, and then it's fair to say, okay, what do we really need to change? Is it how, who, what scheme? It's Celtics fans, if you're listening, do not worry about the Celtics. It's got the short end of the stick. There's nothing more, nothing less. Marcus Smart was playing well yesterday. You guys have sparks. Jason Tatum got injured. Hopefully Jason Tatum could come back. I still think they can win a game at home. Yeah. Shoot, why not 2? Why not a game in New York? This can go 6. Celtics in 6. Celtics in 6. Suns in 6 and Celtics in 6. Say that 7 times fast. Celtics in 6, Celtics in 6, Celtics in 6. Anyways, the Nets are my favorite for a reason. So, that's all I have to say about that. You know? What was that from? That's all I have to say about Wyatt. Forrest Gump, greatest movie of all time. Highly suggested. Greatest movie of all time. That's all I have to say about Wyatt. Now, on to the Portland Trail Blazers and the Denver Nuggets. I'm gonna stop with the accent. It's tied 1-1. And I'm pretty darn confident that Portland is going to win the series. Pretty confident. I think they're just too much. Too much for this Denver Nuggets team to defend. I think Damian Lillard, they can't guard him. Last game, it was sort of a must-win for Denver, so similar to the Lakers, just way more effort. Looked like they needed it. And that's the other thing I say about the Clippers. They didn't look like they needed that game. Yeah, you're still trying to figure things out, but you gotta want it a little bit more. And yeah, Paul George crossed over with Kristaps. Kawhi dunks on, I forget his name, 42. They disrespected him with that graphic saying he's not Luka. But anyways, I just need a little more want from the Clippers. That's it. But anyways, Portland, Denver. Portland's defense is clearly an Achilles heel. I'm just killing it with the words today. Achilles heel. Achilles. What was Achilles the god of? Answer the question down below, please, if you have it. But their Achilles heel is not going to kill them. Their defense. It's not going to. This series, they're fine. Now, next series, they play either Lakers or the Suns. Suns in 6. I really have Lakers in 5. I don't want you guys to think I have the Suns in 6. It's just I like to say it. Suns in 6. Celtics in 6. They play the Lakers or the Suns. It'll probably be the Lakers. And that'll be a different series. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Now, again, with the keyword of the day. Keyword of the day, now. Figure out the definition now. A lot of people use it but don't know it. The MVP is constantly said it's not given to the best player every year, the most valuable player every year. It's Chris Paul or LeBron James every year. And it's just given to somebody who just puts up good numbers. It's really the most improved player, not the most improved role player. Even though Julius Randle is a star, usually it's given to the most improved star player. That's what MVP really should be called, or really is. But with Jokic this year, I think we're getting a genuine MVP. You could say this about a lot of stars. Without Damian Lillard, we're the Portland Trail Blazers. Without LeBron, we're the Lakers, probably in the same position somewhat. Without, I was about to say Kevin Durant, but without Giannis, we're the Bucks. Without Jimmy Butler, we're the Heat. And you can say that about a lot of players. But Jokic this year, without Jamal Murray, they still have a great record without him. The way he can just adapt, he knows that Denver offense like the back of his hand. As long as Michael Malone is in Denver, Jokic will be there. I know it. Because Jokic can score anytime he wants to. He can pass anytime he wants to. I believe he had 2 assists in the game 1. And that's not because Jokic didn't want 2 assists. That's because he needed to score. And that's what I love about Jokic. You know, we got Luka, phenomenal. But Luka's going to fill the stat sheet no matter what. Luka, I don't need you to fill the stat sheet. I need for you to be a distributor right now. I don't need 35, 10, and 10. I need 20, 15, and 7. I don't need Luka. I don't need for you to get those assists. Stop passing the ball. Stop kicking it out. I need for you to be aggressive. Jokic knows his game. He knows when to be aggressive. He knows when to pass. And that is something that LeBron gets a lot of flack for. That's probably the best aspect of his game. And I love that aspect of Jokic's game. He just knows. Smart. Very, very smart player. A lot of these NBA players are very intelligent. But just in the heat of the moment, most people's, you don't think properly in the heat of the moment. You know this. Where you sat back and like, oh my God, why would I do this? Why did I do this? Right? Jokic is one of those players, calm, 24/7. If there's a player you want to play with, it's Jokic. Not because you're going to get a lot of points, but because you know you're not going to get pissed at him for what he does. Because he usually is going to make the right play. Passing, great. You don't have to be a great passer. If he wasn't a great passer, if he wasn't a great shooter, he'd still be a star in this league because he's that smart. Draymond Green type of player. If Jokic wasn't that offensively skilled player, he would still be in the league. He would be a good defensive player. I truly believe that. Truly believe that. So, this season, Jokic by a landslide, somewhat. Again, another saying, is landslide a big margin? I believe it's a big margin, but I've heard landslide be like used in a small margin kind of way. People just don't know the definition of things and it confuses people like me. That's the problem I have, right? Now, 76ers Wizards. Again, with the now. I'm going to cut it out. I'm not going to say now for the rest of the podcast. Now. Anyways, 76ers and Wizards. The Celtics. Now I'm bringing it back to the Celtics. I believe the Celtics, even though they got blown out yesterday, they show up to the playoffs. You're not gonna. This is gonna be one of the most difficult 4-game sweeps in league history in the first round between a 2 and a 7 seed. Now there's no way to measure that, but it's just my opinion. Excuse the gulp of water. The 76ers, though, what? They just look poor, man. And I said this a few weeks back. It wasn't convincing against an injured Nets team. It wasn't convincing against an injured Milwaukee Bucks team. I believe that's the team to play. It wasn't convincing, no, it was the Clippers. It wasn't convincing against an injured Clippers without Kawhi. It just wasn't convincing. And playing up and down to the level of your competition is cool. If you're playing on the FAMU Legends intramural basketball team. But these guys are professionals. I expect Ben Simmons to show up a little bit more. I love Ben Simmons. Punch him in the mouth. And now they could punch him in the mouth tonight. You never know. But it's always, yeah, we're better than this team, but we're going to play with them like a bear and its prey. No. I want you to be a lion. Nothing against bears. Bears are cooler than lions. But if you know animals, bears like to play with their prey a little bit when they know they got them. Lions, they just go straight for the neck. Nets went straight for the neck. Bucks went straight for the neck. If you want to be legit contenders. There's some things that just shows, oh, these guys are legit. Like the Suns last night. They had a chance, they tied the game. Cameron Payne, I believe, had a deep three, right? Had a chance, Lakers missed the shot. Have a chance to go up. Poor offensive possession, don't go up. Later in the game, they go up, right? They go on a little run. The crowd's into it. Lakers go on a run. I don't remember the run, but I remember the Lakers were down by 2 or 3. Then they're up by 3 a minute later. And there's less than 5 minutes left in the game at this stage. And it's just like, yeah, that's championship team. Are the 76ers doing that? Are the 76ers struggling, right? That's my problem with the 76ers. I would prefer for them not to play down to level competition. Right? Now. Oh, I said now. Wow. Okay, that's 10 push-ups. I owe the audience 10 push-ups. Hopefully, by the Eastern Conference Finals, they figure it out. I think they can. But it's a good thing they got the 1 seed. I told you. I'm not saying I told you. You probably knew this. They needed that number 1 seed to avoid the Nets, Bucks. Because if the Sixers are playing the Bucks in the second round, I got the Bucks in that series. Celtics, the Wizards, and the Grizzlies. I didn't say too much on the Wizards, but those 3 teams, I was thoroughly surprised at how they came out in Game 1. Now, Game 2, Celtics got blown out. We'll see with the Grizzlies game tonight, and we'll see with the Wizards tonight. But the only team to win were the Grizzlies out of the 3 teams. 3 of those teams were playing game teams. I expected the blowout game to be Monday night or Sunday, and the close game to be Game 2. But no, it was different. Totally opposite so far, at least. We haven't seen the Wizards and the Grizzlies play. But Grizzlies, as I said, the only team to win. And they had the best record in the playoffs so far. I'm counting the play-on game as a record. 3-0 in the playoffs because of the Grayson Allen. And yeah, you can give some credit to his sidekick, Ja Morant. He's another reason why they're 3-0. But to speak on the sidekick, the Robin to Grayson Allen's Batman, would that be a... No. The Robin to Grayson Allen, Ja Morant. I'll just say that. He plays at his own pace. And Jokic, I said, makes the right plays every single time. Ja Morant does the same thing. Not the right play, but he plays at his own pace, like Jokic. Not the right decisions every play, but plays at the right pace. And I do believe he does make the right to play 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 times. And that's impressive for a young player, showing me, again, why he's the Rookie of the Year and why Zion's at home watching. Nothing against Zion, but there's a reason for this. There's levels to this. And it's also really cool when the team that plays takes on the identity of the town. We had this with the Jaguars in 2018, right? Jacksonville. We aren't finesse. Jacksonville people aren't finesse. And this Grizzlies team is like Memphis. I've never been to Memphis, but I know Memphis people. Drake's not from Memphis, but Drake's dad's from Memphis, but I know people from Memphis. They're rugged but sweet. They're like sharp soap. I just created that on the edge. It's gonna be smooth, but it's a little pointy. But anyways, I really like it. In 2021, 2022, Coach of the Year, I'm calling it Taylor Jenkins of the Utah Grizzlies. Of the Utah Grizzlies. Yes, Utah Grizzlies. Of the Memphis Grizzlies. And another thing that I find interesting in this series is we're seeing finesse or physical. Jazz being finesse, Memphis being physical. We're just seeing so many different factors play. We're seeing maybe the Jazz going into now becoming that team that gets into this category, the category of the Trailblazers category or the Bucks category. Bucks can change that, of course, this year. The Clippers category too, and the Clippers can change that change and get out of this category too, also this year. And that category is, you made the playoffs, but we're not going to get our hopes too high about you. You still need to prove something for us to get some faith in you. Category. Still working on the name. Don't hand the name, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. The Jazz are going to fall into that category if they lose in the first round again. If they don't make the Western Conference Finals. They need to make the Western Conference Finals. No shame in losing to the Lakers. But you don't want to get into this category of, oh, good, you're in the playoffs, but okay, whatever. That's what we feel with the Trailblazers. Like the Trailblazers, even with Jamal Murray, with Denver having Jamal Murray, I still will probably have the Blazers in 7. But because we've seen it before, you made the Western Conference Finals. Damian Lillard hits 40 points and you still lose. You got to show us something for us to have some faith in you. That's the category if the Grizzlies win, the Jazz will be in. Oh, you like that? You like the bar. Now, looking at this last series, the game that's 7 o'clock or 7:30, one of the two, tonight, Knicks versus Hawks. And I believe we slightly overestimated how good Julius Randle is going to be in the playoffs. First playoffs, as he's the man. It's normal. I expect Julius Randle to come out in Game 2 better. But I don't expect Julius Randle to have one of his 30-point games. Maybe once in this series. Maybe in Game 5 he can do it. But, yeah, I don't think he does it in Game 3 and 4. Because it's in Atlanta. But nothing against that. First playoffs. He's going to come back. He's going to drop in the 20s. He's going to shoot a better percentage. But with us overestimating Julius Randle, we probably underestimated Trae Young. He is a baby Steph Curry. And it's something that no one wants to say and no one wants to admit. But he's baby Steph Curry. Not as good as a shooter, of course. Discount. 80%. He's 80%. Now, he's going to morph into his own player. But for right now, he's 80% Steph Curry. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just got a new haircut yesterday. So if you feel me feeling around my hair, feel hair ruffling in the back, it's me because I lost all my hair. I'm bald. I'm not bald, but I had a pretty nice little stash, little fro going on. But anyways, Trae Young wins this series. He's top 15, right? Top 15? Top 10? He's got it. Got to be somewhere in there. He can't be... He's about to get into the category of guaranteed all-star. All-star. You know? It doesn't really matter what he puts up. It doesn't really matter how well the team's doing. All-star. Just like LeBron. All-star every year. Kobe. All-star pretty much every year. Kevin Durant. Kyrie. They may not have their best seasons. And some players may have better players, improved players, putting up better numbers. But they're going to make the All-Star game no matter what. And Trae Young, in the weak East, apparently, East Conference look better than the Western Conference now. I'm going to say that. But perennial all-star every single year. Now, we talked about, again, another now. That's like 20. That's 20 nows and 20 push-ups. Every now that I say from now on, so that's 2. So 20 push-ups for every now. Unless it really works. Last week, I told you guys, big week of football coming up. Hopefully you guys watched. It was really good games. If you didn't watch it, I'm disappointed in you. Shame on you. If you saw Leicester City game, Leicester City versus Tottenham, 4-2, great game. Leicester City up 1-0. Tottenham tie. Leicester City up 2-1. Tottenham tie. Gareth Bale then takes over. If you don't know Gareth Bale, watch a highlight tape of him. Very good player. Then City Everton. Probably the game that if you watched on Sunday or Saturday, it was on Sunday, you saw Everton get sort of crushed. And City, the funny thing about that, City already won the league. They didn't need to win that game 5-0. But Champions League finals, your next game, you want to go into that with high spirits, playing well. You know, they played some games earlier in the season, like 2 weeks, and they lost. And then the other game was a tighter game against Newcastle they didn't really want. Just more to it. But Chelsea needed to win that game. Because let's say Leicester City won, right? Chelsea's out of the Champions League, not top 4. Luckily, Leicester's lost. Chelsea need to win against Aston Villa. They played Aston Villa. They lost 2-1. And that's not a good sign. You got the Champions League this Saturday coming up. And you have another... And you're fighting for Champions League position. Those games you need to wake up for. And that's just not a satisfying tone or taste that I have with the team going into the Champions League final. Now, am I confident they'll show up? And Conte was injured, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Mendy got injured in the game. Yeah, Conte was injured. And they'll show up against City. Better with Conte. They say Mendy's healthy too. Thomas Tuchel says Mendy's healthy. So, expect not a 5-0 win by City in Champions League final. Because it will be a different Chelsea team. And it'll definitely be a different City team. Nerves play a factor. I don't care how good you are. Nerves play a factor. With the Champions League final and with the Europa League final coming up, let's talk football. NFL football. And the NFL are like that narcissistic coworker that you work with. It always somehow comes back to them. How? I don't know. But let's talk Aaron Rodgers. Nothing really to talk about there. He's going to play for the Green Bay Packers, it looks like. But the real big news that I really want to talk about is one of my favorite players, Julio Jones. I think for a few years he was the best wide receiver in the league. Couldn't show it because he was not on the championship team. And when you're in your peak and you're not winning, that can hurt your psyche. And now Julio Jones is done. He says he's out. He doesn't want to go to an AFC team. He's showing some respect to the Hawks for that. I don't mind that. So I made a list of potential AFC teams that can give up who are good and are potential Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. Who will give up some assets to the Hawks. The Ravens. This is tough. The Ravens are a tough one only because this team is a complete team. They drafted a wide receiver. They got Sammy Watkins. They got Hollywood Brown. They got J.K. Dobbins. This is a complete team. The defense is complete. But the Ravens have a good capital and good assets to trade. Now, who do you trade for? Who do you give up? My favorite player, really, this is truly my favorite player in the league right now. Marcus Peters. Give up Marcus Peters, and you can give up some draft picks. Now to the rivals, the Browns. Who do the Browns give up? One player swap. Julio for Odell. Simple. The Colts. They could give a first round pick. They could give a wide receiver, quarterback Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason could be the next guy in Atlanta to come behind Matt Ryan. It won't be a whole lot of hoopla behind it. Or who do you draft? What happens there? Jacob Eason. So, first round pick, Jacob Eason, and you could give up T.Y. Hilton. Give T.Y. Hilton. They get a wide receiver in return, because Pitts is going to handle the load, and I believe Calvin Ridley's good enough to handle the load too. And then you get T.Y. Hilton. So Jacob Eason, first round pick, T.Y. Hilton. Possibly. Dolphins. They probably the Falcons. They got Hawks and Falcons in Atlanta. The Falcons can probably not get Xavier Howard from the Dolphins, but Eric Rowe had a good season, and Byron Jones had a good season. I'm saying a lot of corners backs because the Falcons gave up over 4,000 passing yards last year. Most teams gave around 3,000 yards. If there were decent teams, gave around 3,000 yards last year. So, if you disagree with my list, look at the teams in the AFC who have a chance to win and have decent corners, right? So, if you disagree with my list, if you want to do the team that you want to do it, okay, write that down in the comments. If you want to do the teams most likely to go, write that down in the comments. I gave you my 4 teams. There could be 5. I saw one list of 10. They had NFC teams in there also, but with that, let's get into the predictions for the Europa League and the predictions for the Champions League. Now, starting with the Europa League. Europa League's today, actually. So, if you listen to the podcast, another water bottle drink. If you listen to the podcast tomorrow, it's sort of a waste of time. You can skip by this part. Will I have a time stamp for it? Probably not. You're just going to have to hit that 10-second one. 10-second, double time. Triple time. Europa League final tonight, or midday for us if you're in the States. I think it's going to be a better game than most imagine. Manchester United have injuries. We'll get into the injuries later. If you remember that Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid final, not the one where Sergio Ramos scored a last-second shot, Bale hit a header, Ronaldo, I believe, hit a PK, Marcellus hit a shot. Did Ronaldo hit a PK? I don't know, but he scored a PK. But he scored that game. Not that one. I'm talking about the one where Carrasco kissed his wife in the stands, and it was 1-1. Ronaldo won it on penalties, or he scored the last penalty. That's the one I'm talking about. I think it has the similar feel of that game. Organized team, somewhat more attacking team. I think it's going to be that kind of game. I think it's going to be a good game. No Maguire. I think Fred is iffy. McTominay is probably going to be back. But who's going to win? And I got United winning 2-1 against Villarreal. Champions League final. Chelsea Man City. Saturday. Chelsea have been in City twice this season. Maybe 3 times. But it's definitely been twice in the last 2 months. FA Cup final and EPL. Even though the EPL game was sort of, all over the place. So there's a chance. 2 teams from the same country. I don't love those finals. It can be a little tricky because, again, they played each other 2 or, in their instance, with City and Chelsea 3 times. It'd just be a boring match. You know what this team's expect. You know what this team's going to do. You know the team very well, so you're going to prevent them. And when you play prevent, everyone knows prevent defense in football. it's a lot of bending but not breaking. So that can lead to a lot of exciting football. But in football, when it's bend not break, it's somewhat a team stays compact, another team just passes around for 20 minutes in the third. So I hope it's a good game. Tuchel's going to come up. Tuchel's going to set up. Tuchel's going to set up in a way that's going to help his team win. So he's not going to do anything flashy. If he's going to win, if Tuchel says put 11 players on the goal line of the goal, they're going to do that. They're going to do it. Whatever they can do to win the game. With this, who do I have to win? Manchester City, I have winning the Champions League final, winning 2-0 with Jesus with the goal and Kevin De Bruyne, the second best player in the world. I will say it every single time I come to this podcast until he is not. Every time I can say his name. Second best player in the world behind Kylian Mbappe. But don't be surprised if John Stones scores a goal too. Don't be surprised. I believe John Stones, maybe outside of not Jesse Lingard, Raheem Sterling or Fernandinho. I'm talking about the longest tenured players on that team. Has Kevin De Bruyne been there longer? Kevin De Bruyne might have been there longer than John Stones. And if you want to include Phil Foden, I think he's been in the academy for a while. But John Stones is the kind of guy you just pull for. But you guys, that's in the podcast. A little bit longer podcast. Am I going to shorten these things? Maybe. Maybe not. But this is the Peng Sports Podcast, episode 13. Lucky number 13. I think I'm getting better, you guys. I really do. I think I'm getting better. Please do what you want with this. Like, subscribe to my YouTube, or follow me on SoundCloud. I believe it's follow on SoundCloud. But not doing it for the views, man. I'm doing it because it's fun. Doing it because I like it. Thank you guys for listening. Really, thank you guys. It means a lot. This is Kamal Daniels, Peng Sports Podcast, episode 13. I'll see you next week on May. Oh, it'll be June next week. See you next week, June. All right. Have a good week. Finish your week out strong, man. Finish your week out strong. All right. Thank you and good night.